Welcome back, everyone. It's so cool to be again back on our couch and with Rory and I. Today, we're going to talk about just autism and understanding what is this term, and then just get a bit of a parent's perspective. And then what we truly now have figured out is what we believe, which is quite controversial, is autism. So I'll just start with giving you a bit of a Google or dictionary perspective. So autism is what you could say is neurotypically you're quite different, or from a neurodiversity point of view, and your brain does work quite differently. But with that comes impairments from a social perspective, so how you interact with others, how you interact with your world. And then a big one is communication. So this could be verbal, it could just be non-verbal. It's all the ways in which you can communicate, which is also quite a big element of autism. And then there are other challenges in terms of sensory processing. And they call it the autism spectrum because I think history had it where there was quite a different of these individual neuro disorders that were almost treated quite separately. And then collectively it became autism. And that could even extend to things like high anxiety disorder, even up to depression, including things like OCD, so it's obsessive compulsive disorder, pathological demand avoidance, issues with food offered. There's quite a big list that can be linked: bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and collectively, that's the autism spectrum. But it doesn't mean if you possess one of these disorders that you're now autistic. There is also something called high functioning, which was previously known as Asperger's syndrome, which is a higher functioning level of what we call a neuro disorder. And in those instances, the person typically presents quite normally, but you can see a social awkwardness about them or difference about them. So I'm not using the best terms, I think, in terms of the specific words out there or the way a doctor would diagnose, but it's just to give you more or less an idea of understanding autism, because I think the stats you were telling me, what is it looking like at the moment?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's roughly 1 in 30 right now in children. And I think in South Africa, specifically in schools, a lot of them don't cater for children on the spectrum. I think we spoke about a lot of them are doing a really great job and can do better. But I think it's no longer a thing where you hear about it. It's in another country. I think it's your neighbor right now.
Yeah.
It's your family. It's your sister and their children. So I think it's getting closer. The stats are quite high.
Yeah.
And what we found is it's not a death sentence, as we spoke about in the original episode. I think you can identify it a lot quicker. There's a lot of things you can do. And a lot of stuff is really just diet, which we'll touch on as well.
Yeah.
Which is a major, major factor. But I think, if I had to point out just how I would really see autism is, if you can think about it just and how to identify it and how to just interact and engage with someone with autism, it's really just someone that has severe anxiety. I think that's the best way to describe it. I think we deal with Asher like he has severe anxiety, so we prep him well in advance. So for instance, we went to Joburg, and the entire week we prepped him, because another thing, what we notice about people with autism is they struggle with transition. So transitioning from one activity to the next, because again, that's something they can't predict or control, and again leads up to anxiety. So we try to prep him. Also, what they tend to do in situations where they're feeling overwhelmed is they're trying to control the immediate environment. Sometimes they will stim, which is vocally or using their eyes visually. So that's what you'll see when the children are singing and playing. We often hear people tell us, "Is that such a beautiful voice?" And we're like, yeah, he's happy, because that's what he's trying to do, right? He either stims, whether he's just really happy, and he's pure joy and pure love, and that's why we 100% love him completely. And we try to manage his environment as best as we can. So we prep him, we tell him what he can anticipate. So even when we go out, he has the memory of an elephant. He will tell us when we're going down the wrong road. He'll be like, no, we're not going down the wrong road, because he knows But it's been fun.
No, he's got a crazy good memory, like a picture memory. But look, I don't think this is only about Asher, but we could speak about Asher like all day, every day. But he really does have such unique talents and traits, and I think in what Rory's speaking about, it's just how we've uncovered them, and instead of trying to move away from them, trying to understand them, and how do we encourage certain things with him.
Yeah.
Like we know if Ash is not feeling well, then one of the big signs is that he's not stimming. So he's not like running up and down and vocally making sounds. He's very subdued, etc. So in a way, we know when he's trying to regulate and just like have a good time, then we can see those kind of symptoms from him.
And a lot of like when your child is also not speaking, I think we as parents have become just like hypervigilant. I think we really look at micro expressions. So we manage our daily life by macro expressions. Like we obviously, because he does a lot of things, right? So it doesn't mean because he can't speak that he's not engaging with us. So he'll pull us what he needs. He'll tell us he's hungry. He'll pull us to the cupboard. He'll point to a banana. He'll point to juice. He'll say juice now.
Yes.
Luckily, unfortunately.
Or tablet,
tabby time. So he'll tell us like all of that now, but a lot of that before was like you were talking about being sick. It's you literally every day we would wake up and we were like, okay,
what's his mood?
What's his mood? Is he stimming? Is he not stimming? Why is he not stimming? So it's like a process of elimination. How did he sleep? So that was us every day. So we were living at 110% for most of the time. And I think we consider last year, it's last year now, as just a year of rest because we had so much help and support, and we incredibly grateful.
No, we are. And I'm so grateful that we have the right support, and just like took some time, like if I even had to just pause for a second and just say, I actually took 3 months off just to try and like pause and reflect and figure out what do we need to even do to move forward. And that's when Asher was 3, trying to just navigate this world of we're trying to lead him in this mainstream schooling, Montessori. Is this working out for him? He's sick all the time, not understanding like with autism, and we spoke about it being a spectrum, but there are underlying issues too, so like autoimmune issues.
Yeah.
And we started addressing those things through biomedicine, which is a different approach, an alternative approach from the Western approach in terms of medication and just health and being. And so I think we mentioned it in our first episode, but I did want to just go a little bit deeper and explain what that's all about. It is quite a lot of content out there, but it's also important that you look at reliable sources in terms of information. I will show you some books that I've read, some protocols that we've implemented, and I think, I don't know if you would agree, like if there's one regret, I think not doing diet work and biomedicine sooner is like the biggest regret.
But I think we would have known, right? I think if you... Because I'm trying to picture out like what we would have done differently, and I think our starting point would have been the same. I think for every parent it would have been the same, and I think without any of this type of content that I think people are trying to push out now, and we spoke about it being community driven, and I think that's what we need, right? It's more parents speaking out, trying to speak about the help that we need, the awareness that we need. And I think because that's what we're not seeing, and that's what we're trying to do, be part of the conversation, because we spoke about it, it's really a gut thing. And I think if we can just do that sooner, a lot of, like I said, retrospectively, that's what we would have done.
Yeah,
because
100%.
We've seen the most changes, and it's the simplest things, right? It doesn't cost a lot of money. By implementing no sugar, no gluten, all of that contributed massively
to Ash's progress.
100%.
So like to take you deeper, because I think some people did message me to say, like, I actually want to know what you guys practically did. We followed this first step of where we saw it shift. We didn't tell anyone what we were doing. I read a book through a very amazing lady named Sumkiri. She runs a autism center in Athlone, and she gave me a book called the Nemechek protocol. So we started there, and that was our first step into understanding like the microbiome, understanding the gut, understanding how does this all work. And it's a 2 simple ingredient thing. I'm very happy if you want to reach out to me to just share more on it. But basically, it's really just understanding how a person with autism plus any other neurodiverse type of issue you're dealing with, whether it's ADHD, anxiety, the list goes on, anything that's psychological, there's a definite link between that and inflammation in your body. And so what it gives you is a prebiotic, which is inulin, and a very potent, normal, natural oil, which is going to be your omega-3s. And we implemented that with Asher. And if I can ask you, because I think we implemented and we're kind of like waiting and seeing, like, what do you think was your first signs of improvement that you saw?
I think what I saw was a notable difference was just eye contact. We don't speak about it enough, but I think one of the early symptoms and the early signs for us was he didn't quite engage with us in terms of eye contact when we called out his name.
He was like in another world.
We always thought, and I am, if you speak to me too much, I avoid you. So demand avoidance. And I naturally always place, okay, if I'm like that, my son's like that. So we naturally thought, okay, he's probably just that stubborn. But later, and then you even took him for a hearing test, and I was convinced, no, he's just stubborn. And his hearing was fine. So we knew there was something else, and I think that's when the doctor picked up that, hey, you might want to look into autism. But I think a lot of that was, firstly, he started to engage a lot more. He started to, I think a lot of times we spoke about stimming and what that could mean, and it could either be vocalization or visually, so you like look at a teddy bear really quite closely. That kind of stopped, and he stopped running around as much.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of other things as well.
I think the big one that was notable for me was improved immune system. Because that's where he wasn't getting sick as regularly. He was still getting sick quite a lot, but not like every 2 weeks, like how he was actually getting sick at school. And his speech therapist at the time, she said to me that his joint attention and ability to just sit in like therapy, something has shifted. She didn't know what it was. He's more responsive, able to engage. And this is like really like the beginning stages. And we started that just before his before his third birthday. So for that full year, we started that. And that's when I realized there's something in this gut situation around autism, and there's a link.
Yeah, and it's weird, right? Like we would see the changes, like it was Christmas, and we'd obviously think, okay, he's on holiday, he was homeschooled, so it's his school holiday, and we would give him sugar, so we would cut down, we would give him a break in terms of the rigidity of our routine and his routine. And so we would allow him like sugar and some gluten now and then. I don't think too much, but we would give him, and we would see the changes literally in an instant.
Yeah.
It would be a switch. And that's how we knew how much impact diet has.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we give him sugar, some of the symptoms come back. He starts stimming, the sleep is interrupted again. So diet, we can't stress enough how much diet plays a role.
100%. Other things that we are still trying to implement now is he's gluten-free, dairy-free for some time. We also started with some testing of just his current status. And we went through a doctor named Dr. Lindenberg, and she's based in Belleville, Cape Town, or northern suburbs, I forgot exactly where, but her consult is really a deep dive into understanding your child. So with autism, like we said before, nobody presents everything the same.
Yeah.
But 98% of autistic children have a gut issue. So Asher, after testing, had gut dysbiosis, leaky gut. Leaky gut is actually whatever you're consuming, it takes like a really short time for it to actually enter your bloodstream. And that's why he would have immediate, instant impact of whatever he was consuming. But it also works the other way, and this is where maybe in this year we will start implementing more of, is thinking about also the skin being an organ, and how whatever else you're giving him, whether it's the lotions, whether it's the detergents, whether it's anything else, actually then plays a role in terms of also entering his body and bringing on toxicity.
100%. So a lot of the times you'll see, especially when you look at autism on all the social media, you'll hear the word detox come in a lot, and you think a lot of it's hokey pokey.
No.
But a lot of this plays into central themes, right? Which is the environment and being exposed to things our forefathers haven't been. But a lot of that comes into play with dietary, processed foods,
Yeah.
and all of that. And if you take it back to just a more healthier option, your child can see an amazing difference. Yeah.
And on that, I think a lot of people are asking what causes autism. And I think that's also a very difficult question to answer. But I think I'm going to give a perspective from our point of view. I think there is a part that is hereditary when it comes from just certain things that was in your family. And I'm not just talking about Rory and us as parents, I'm talking about the whole like lineage, the whole line of your family. And I think with the genes as they're moving on, these things become a little bit more prominent. 9 out of 10 times, what they have seen is children with autism either have a parent or a grandparent with ADHD or depression.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Giftedness.
That's a very important one too. And then also anxiety, maybe other issues.
Yeah.
But with that, it's also, if you think about the birthing process, there's also a link between the biology side of like whatever's in your gut and how, in your makeup of your body and what does that look like. And then there is definitely environmental impact. And I'm not to say that vaccinations cause autism. But what I've understood now is that a person with autism, for example, if you have diabetes in your family, it's not to say you're sitting now with diabetes, but then there's a trigger event that will happen in your body that will initiate this diabetes to now become active.
It's like cancer, right?
Like cancer. Yeah. Cancer is inflammation, basically, like a high level of inflammation in your body. Also environmental factors that affect it. So there are many other illnesses. Actually, if you watch Dr. Nemechek, he actually speaks about inflammation being the highest cause of death, even besides car accidents, etc. That is the highest cause of death, is inflammation in your body. And it causes so many other issues. So by addressing the gut, which is your second brain in your body, it's your immune defense, and building that up and repairing that in somebody who's autistic, you actually are giving the body a chance to sort out the other systems that are not working so well. So there's something called the methylation process of your body. It's like your body's ability to remove toxins and detoxify naturally. Somebody with autism has an impaired one. So you do need to detox them because they don't have the ability to do these things naturally.
And that's why like sometimes they like you'll see in most cases, like in every situation, they present as normal, as typical. And then a trigger event happens and suddenly there's a flare up. And that's where you see the loss of certain skills. Just like you would, I would imagine, like when cancer happens. I think we're all born with cancer cells. And there's a trigger event that sometimes spikes the effect of it.
And on the vaccination issue, because I know there's a lot of controversy around it, but I just see it as an injury to your body. So basically, if you're injecting a viral thing into your body and maybe doing them all at one time and somebody's already immune compromised, there is a likelihood that it would cause your body high inflammation in your body to respond. And that's what I believe starts you seeing these events happen. There's some people who have not been vaccinated at all and they're autistic because it's a host of possible factors, in my opinion. And still there are many studies where people are trying to find the exact cause, but I definitely believe this. And I think by us going to the root cause of the issue, we are starting to see the gains. I'm seeing it as remedial. I'm seeing it as us repairing his gut. And now, I don't know if you want to talk about the SED diet that we are moving towards now, where it's going to be even more shifts in terms of what we're doing. Do you want to maybe talk about his current food aversions, what he will not eat?
Ashes is from the very early stages. I think he was demand avoidant, food avoidant. He just didn't like any sort of mixtures of textures. He has a very sensitive sensory profile. So food, you imagine, brings across a lot of sensory information or input happening at the same time, right? Because there's soft with hard, there's hot with cold. So you imagine in his mind, he's trying to deal with everything at once. And if you imagine it like just a sensory overload, At the same time that he's dealing with his plate, he's listening to the TV, he's listening to you talk.
It's just like danger, like
100%.
danger.
There's a lot happening at the same time. Whereas we typical people would process or trying to prioritize something right in front of you, they struggle with that. So food is a massive sensory time for them, especially when they're eating. So he, by comforting himself, he sticks to what he knows and what is safe foods, as we would call it. I think for a long time he had three foods on his plate for a year, right? We used to buy out the shop for that 3 items for the year. And when I say 3 items, it's 3 items. It's literally only 3 items. You didn't eat anything else.
I know. And they weren't even that nutritional. So like you think you okay, but like all these things are causing more and more issues. Like the more antibiotics he takes, the more gluten he's taking in, the more medications now to try and address whatever he's trying to deal with. All of these things are causing more and more and more injury. So the best way, I think the best thing we ever did was actually taking him out of school and just letting him recover and be at home and less exposed. I think we went from 20 rounds of antibiotics the year before to like 2 last year.
So we were trying to reset that, trying to give him the best chance for that neurons to fire through correctly, which we've done, and we've come a long way. And a lot, still when you talk about maintenance, a lot of that comes down to diet.
It does. So it's also something with Asher, not all children have like such bad food aversions, but his was like critical to the point that one time he was having just fruit squishes, baby fruit squishes and pretzels for 3 months. I was very concerned. I was like, what is the next step here? Like, is he going to need to be put on like a feeding tube or what? Because this is not nutritional. So why we stopped the gluten and the dairy was under the guidance of, I would call it our mentor, Jenny Buckle, which we will introduce to you in a new episode coming soon. And she has fought to the nail for her kids. And she has tried everything. Sometimes people want to frown against those certain things. But I think if you're a mother or a parent or a father and you're trying to just desperately help your kids, there is going to be a time where you're going to like want to try everything. But what she has given us and proven and used many, many times is this approach to diet. So removing the casein in the milk has really helped him remove like a foggy effect in terms of lack of alertness. He's more like before, if you walked in a room, you wouldn't even acknowledge that you walked in. You wouldn't even observe if the fan went on or if if a train walked past, you would just be like,
like Jenny would tell us, and she would try to even stop a session or a tutoring session and tell us, no, he's drunk on sugar. He's just not processing. He can't process for that day because he either had a squish or something with sugar in. So he'll struggle to even sit down and concentrate. And that's why diet plays such a role. And a lot of times before that, because he was in a Montessori before that, and if we look back, it was basically babysitting because he didn't get as much as
learning intervention. No, not 100%. At all.
So I think he's come a long way. We've come a long way. But she's been amazing. I think the reason why we trust her so much is because she's a mother first. And she'll call us out, right? Like she'll tell us that we are seeing Asher in his current state now, but you are undermining what his ability can be and his potential if you limit him. And that's what we like. We like to sometimes be kept in check. And I think it's important, that we do that.
Just lastly on that note, when we think about the diet and just all the interventions, we haven't even started telling you about tutoring, which is something that I would say we started last year as homeschooling, but it really is going all the way back to teaching him the fundamental skills that he needs. But on that, the one thing I would say is we're moving forward, and instead of an elimination diet, which is the gluten and the dairy, we're now going to a yielding diet, which is called SED, which is specific carbohydrate diet. There are very specific types of carbohydrates that are recommended for not just people with autism, with celiac disease, etc., where your body can process it better in terms of the type of complexity of that carbohydrate. So it's very specific, hence the name. And it's something that is proven and really healed quite a lot of symptoms and severe issues when it comes to autism. How we even got Asher to start eating the things that he's eating now, was really, really tough.
It's still tough, right? Like, like
Every day is tough.
We can't hide it. It's literally, it went from syringe feeding,
Yeah, like
to
broths.
now it's still force feeding. Like it's
It
literally
is. It's not a nice
it's not
experience.
no, 100%. It's not a normal sit down at the table.
No.
Oh, here's your potatoes. Here's your chicken.
No.
We can't even call chicken because he loves animals so much. So we just call everything meat right now.
So he's got a number of foods that he's now tolerating, but they are in more of a smooth texture.
Yeah.
And so we are still feeding him. I think once we also just hit a certain place in terms of the gut healing, we start seeing the sensory shift. And there's so much linked to the gut, to the sensory world, to just your immunity, to it all. And I think if there's anything I can do, read this book called The GAPS Diet. It's a very good book, just to explain the link in a little bit more detail. And I hope that this has been educational. Again, we're not doctors. I say this each time. We are just parents who are learning. We don't know, we're not nutritionists, we're not doctors. We just are seeing cause and effect. We're seeing when we do certain things, what the impact is. And those things have been really incredible just to witness and observe. And we also track it daily.
No, 100%. So there's a lot of work that goes into everything, and I think we set the foundations last year, which should set us up nicely for this year. And I think we speak about the fact that we have the right people in place. What we want to do for the next episode is actually bring one of them into the episode, and I think you'll meet Jenny and the tutors and just more people that's involved in our day-to-day, and really get into the science, the lived experience, tips and tricks that can hopefully help you along your journey as much as it helped us.
Take care, guys.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.